and welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable, real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. Hey, everybody. This is Brett Riggins. Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Mogul MD. I am the host here today. I am an investor, an entrepreneur, an author. I have the privilege of speaking with medical professionals, high-income earners, and other investors, sharing their real-world journeys and the to-dos, and most importantly, the not-to-dos along the way. We always have these laid-back conversations, and it's always fun to see where they lead. Today, I have the opportunity of speaking with a board-certified practicing rheumatologist and fibromyalgia life coach, Dr. Martina Ziegenbein. Welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. It's a privilege.
So I practice that over and over and over again because, I've said the word fibromyalgia so many times, and I've never had to deal with the stress of it, but it's kind of like there's just a few pieces in there, and there's so many other professions I feel have a difficult name to pronounce or name to say. Just curious off the top here, has that been a challenge for any of the patients? I mean, you're passionate about, life coach, and so dealing with this, is there ever a challenge when people can't pronounce what the problem is?
Oh, all the time. But with that particular word, fibromyalgia, not really, because it kind of flows easily. But yeah, we have many conditions in rheumatology, for example, spondyloarthropathy or psoriatic arthritis or other longer words that are hard to pronounce. Yeah. But fibromyalgia, that seems to kind of roll out of the tongue pretty easy.
Fibromyalgia.
You did great.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. And thank you for coming to the show. I'm excited to dive right into this. Thank you again for your time and your attention. That's always a joy. I always love asking on the front of the conversation here is just tell us a little bit about you and your medical journey so far.
So I'm a rheumatologist, as you mentioned. I have been now practicing for 16 years. I'll be, my anniversary of starting to be on my own is going to be in June, 16 years in June.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, very exciting. And I went into medicine because one of those really, idealistic reasons. I saw quite a bit of suffering when I was younger, and I just thought that when I go into medicine, I'll be able to give people their health back. And obviously, as you enter medical school, you find out it doesn't work quite like that. But that was the initial reason. And, some of that magic still exists in healthcare field. Very, very interesting.
For me, I grew up my parents building a house, and now I'm my background is in construction, so that's kind of like where a lot of physicians will see that pain and want to help people. It makes me think of just reading a little bit about you, Martina. You've moved here from Slovakia, correct?
Yes, I moved to the United States from Slovakia in June 2001. 2001, yeah.
Wow. And when you mentioned seeing pain in people, what exactly was that pain, or what were those instances that said, man, I would really love to help people?
Good questions. And actually, it's still very emotional, to be honest with you. So my father's brother, so my uncle, he died very young. He was diagnosed at the age of 35 with kidney cancer, and it went really fast. He basically went from a strong, tall, basketball-playing human man to bedridden, and he was not fully present there at the end. And I went to see him at the end, few days before he died, against the wishes of my parents. They didn't want me to see him, and it just really left a mark. So
I can see it, and for the listeners out there who can't see the video, I can see that that's still painful to this day. And I thank you for sharing that. Just it makes me think of so many times in my life where there's been that option to see somebody before they pass. And I've tried both ways, and I see like your parents didn't want you to go. And when I was young, I remember my grandfather, who had, kidney failure as well. And it was, it was my last time seeing him. And that's one of the last things I remember. So it was extremely difficult. And I had a friend, who had prostate cancer, super young guy. I mean, we were so young. He was, in his 20s and died of prostate cancer. And
Oh, wow.
yeah. And I made the decision not to go see him in the hospital. And that was one thing that I did regret, because it's down to the decisions that we all make. And, we're
Yes.
fortunately, we're all going to have those difficult decisions. But how we handle them, I think, is not necessarily the instance of seeing them, but how it forms us and shapes us from there. And ultimately, it's led to the opportunity for you, Martina, to take a step to help people. And I think that's awesome.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you also for sharing about your friends and the decision you made that you regretted. I truly believe that at the end of our life, we regret things we didn't do, not the things we did and made a mistake, made a wrong decision. I think Mark Twain said that, that we regret things that we don't do, not the things we do. So
yes, I have one more instance here. Just over Christmas, I was back up north. I grew up in Michigan, and down here now in the Carolinas, I moved away from the snow. But up for Christmas, we went up to Michigan, and it was one of the worst snow time blizzard of the year while we were up there. And my mother's father was in the hospital, and he's been struggling. And it just felt like, it's getting close to the end of his life. And he had called the house while we were up there, and it was like at 11 or 12 o'clock, and we were all going to bed. And I made the decision. I'm like, Mom, you gotta go up there. No, you don't have to drive. She's worried about me and driving, I have 4-wheel drive. They didn't have any 4-wheel drive at the time. And it's like, so it took us literally to do probably a 15-minute drive. It took, I think, over an hour to get there. It was a scary drive. Anyway, we went, she visited him. That was the last time she saw her father. And it's just like you were saying, it's like you regret the things that you don't do. So
I have chills. So that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that.
In the particular instances, I was going to make it through that blizzard, and no matter what, we're going to get there, because I guess if anybody's out there and encouraging patients or guests or family, when you have the opportunity, do it. And as we all are blessed with continuing time and deaths of our families and friends come around, change what you're doing to go see who you need,
Yes. And it changes. Yeah, it changes everything. So I 100% agree with you.
Interesting. So helping people, and how we were shaped by some of our pain and wanting to help and give back. I mean, that was a lot forming your decision. You said, things were a little different when you went to medical school, and you realized that you didn't just you couldn't just help people. What do you mean by that?
Thank you for you're a good listener. Well, when I was a teenager, as I was deciding, to go into medical school, it looked like you can reverse things, that you can make things better. And as I entered medical school and started doing clinical rotations, eventually I was forced to see that you cannot reverse you cannot give people their health back. Sometimes, many times, once you lose it, some of it is irreversible, which, however, just fueled my desire to still be in medicine so that I can contribute to how to prevent some things from happening, So, but that was a little disappointing. I have to, because my idea was you'll learn about all the processes that happen in our body and that form the body we have, and then you can fix it. And it just doesn't work like that. Fixing doesn't, I mean, science today is so incredible, and you lose a hand and you can attach it back, if it's within time frame, like the reconstructive surgery, vascular surgery, the neurosurgery. I mean, it's incredible advances. But there are things that you just, cannot undo. So I'm mostly referring to, chronic illnesses, the civilization illnesses
Yeah. And it's in that frustration, I feel that frustration. A lot of people feel the frustration. I believe that's a picture of a beautiful organ behind you there, the brain, right?
Yeah. That's
so
great.
I see the bottom of it. And the frustrating piece it makes me think of is like thoughts and feelings. And it's like we understand and we're so developed and, there's so much that we know, but there's so much that we can't change still. And it's in that thing right there in the brain is so fascinating. Like we know it's this, just stop or just change. And you can't, it's got to be frustrating.
Oh, you know what? But what you just said, it's kind of a beautiful segue into what my passion is currently. Basically, and I thank you for commenting on my drawing. This is my drawing of the brain.
Yeah.
But basically, the brain is truly a magnificent organ. And I have discovered its power really in the last 2 years as I started delving more into fibromyalgia management. And this is actually where I rediscovered the beauty when I'm less discouraged, because brain has incredible power. You mentioned thoughts and feelings, and the thoughts are, yes, you're correct. Thoughts determine our feelings, but thoughts are optional. And when we master that, when we first embrace that and then work on changing our thoughts, we can get incredible results. And so that's kind of a segue to what I'm working with now.
Yes, that's beautiful as the life coach part of it. And, just mentioning that, there is a gentleman named Tony Robbins. Have you ever read?
Of course. I have his book.
Yes. So, and I've almost completely through one of his books called Unleash the Giant Within.
I don't have that one.
Within. Oh, it's remarkable. And it's just, it's exactly what we're talking about here. And, I'm always excited to talk about, I have a 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. My 8-year-old's turns.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Turns 9 here in August, but they are now homeschooled here in the Carolinas, and my wife does a wonderful job doing that. And I had started doing something called eSchool with them, entrepreneur school. So every Friday I would work with them, and we all decided that the most important piece is the values. The character development piece of it because no matter what business you have, it comes back down to the business person, right? So that's where we were starting. And it was all based around, my journey, learning this. And Anthony's book, Unleash the Giant Within, is exactly what you're talking about, is our perspective, how we're seeing things, what actually happens in our brain, and then what we do have control of to make sure that process, is something that we can benefit from, right?
Yes. And I have to say, I'm so impressed that you're doing that for your kids. It makes me again emotional, because I wish I'm 16 years into my career, and I wish I had received even just a fraction of what I have learned over the past 2 years since I came here. Everything seemed to have started happening when I moved to the Cape, but because it's like a treasure. So what you're giving to your kids, good for you and for your wife. They are going to use it their entire life in every field they're going to go to. Like, it doesn't matter what they're going to do if they have these tools, and it's a huge gift. Yeah. So, so that's what I'm going to do also for my son. I don't homeschool him, but I'm definitely going to expose him to what I do and the power of thoughts and mind. Yeah. And so thank you for mentioning that, and great job doing that for your kids.
Thank you. I have to keep running because I feel like we will hit a wall, because, and I've said this too, I heard you say it. I wish I had this before. And I've said it so often. Like when I first learned about real estate, I get goosebumps thinking about it. I can, in my mind, here we go. I'm going to take my mind. Our mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not.
Yes.
Right? So in my mind, this is real right now. I take myself back to that, sitting in this big conference room, and learning about real estate for the first time, and like just overwhelmed with, because it was epiphany, right? There's this thing that was happening. I'm like, oh my goodness. And then you just get frustrated. Like, why haven't I learned this before? And then these personal development things that, I've picked up in the last 10 years. I would say that, I wish I would have known this before. And then I get frustrated. Why haven't I known? Why isn't this part of, I think Jim Rohn should be a class in high school. Like, I just think Tony Robbins should be a class in high school,
Worldwide.
Yes.
Not just in the United States.
I always come back to this idea that maybe I wasn't ready, and it makes me happy, and it's humbling, and makes me think that everything happens for a reason. Everything where I'm at now is exactly where I should be. So and what I was going to say is I can plant seeds with my kids. Right. And I can't force them. I can't, and you can't force character. You can't do that. I can show, I can't tell. So everything that I'm doing in my life, they see. Right. And I can plant these seeds. So I think that when you and I say, I wish I would have had this, maybe we did. Maybe those seeds were there, and we had so much going on in our life that it was overwhelmed, and we couldn't see those little things that were planted.
Or I could say, and that's what I choose to think, is that, it is what it is. I cannot change the past. And I have an opportunity to do it for my son and for others.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
There is always an upside.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And planting seeds, and, and I have a trouble, Martina, because when I learn something and it's so valuable to me, and I'm emotional over it. And then that's all I talk about. Right. And then I realize, like, some people just don't care, some people don't care. They don't want to learn, so it's like sometimes you have to watch out.
I know what you mean. I was like that with CrossFit. When I first started doing CrossFit, like, all I wanted to do and read and talk about was CrossFit. And other people are like, just leave me alone.
Yeah. Like, I know.
Oh,
that's fine. Hey, Martina, what's been your biggest challenge so far?
So I thought about it a little bit, and I have to say it's been overcoming my own pattern of thoughts and reactions. Basically, I'm very impulsive, and it can be very good. Like everything has a dark side, right? It has a bright and dark side, and it's really good. It has brought me a lot of satisfaction in my interaction with patients, because I cry with them, I hug them. That's the part of impulsivity I love. And then there is the part of impulsivity that is about a thought. Like, something happens, a circumstance, I react to it, and instead of pausing, I say things or I do things that I then later regret. And it has got me into many difficult situations, mostly at work, but also at home. And so I really feel right now, I feel this has been one of my purposes or my path in life to control my own, basically mind, and show up as the person I want to show up as, and not as the instinctive Martina who reacts to the perceived danger, or who reacts to the perception that she's being wronged. Yeah. So I have to say that it's what it boils down to for me.
Yeah. So a challenge. And that reminds me of a verse from the Bible. I think it's quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. I've probably mixed it up.
Well, I get it. No, it's beautiful. I should have listened to that when I was 12. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm learning that now.
Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. And then, that impulsive piece. I have a wonderful relationship in my marriage, is where I'm impulsive. Like, I get the job done. And my wife is, she's collective. So she'll wait and collect all of the information, and then slow and steady make the decision. So it's
so you
balance.
Probably complement your
yes.
each other very beautifully.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we have our businesses, we're in a businesses together, and we're 50-50 partner and everything. And it's just
nice.
As a marriage, you could imagine in a marriage, it could get difficult, making business decisions, money decisions, all of that, on top of the challenge with the family. But in the retrospect, or, in hindsight, looking back at everything we've done, it's always been better because we've done it together.
And I love that. I mean, you decided you made it work. I mean, you apparently made a decision you're going to make it work, and you did. So good for you.
Yeah. I always tell everybody, if you really want to test a relationship, do a renovation. right? Do a renovation on your house, or, flip a house or something like that. Cause you really, really build in the test of
I heard that if you want to
communication.
test a relationship, go camping with your partner.
Yeah,
That's what I heard.
probably the same thing. So with that challenge that you have of the impulsive, controlling that impulsive, Martina, and then this passion with the brain and the feelings and the thoughts, how does that tie into the life coach aspect for fibromyalgia?
Yes, thank you for asking. So because everything does tie together. So as the impulsivity, I mean, I have to be able to forgive myself. So self-compassion is extremely important to recover from each incident. And I'm also working on it to prevent those kind of explosions. So I'm getting better, but I'm not perfect. I'm not a robot. So self-compassion, and that's what I teach. That's a piece that I teach my patients and clients. And if I were not able to do it for myself, I wouldn't be able to, teach it, because when you say words that you don't either have an example or that you don't feel, it's just string of words, right? When you try to, and self-compassion has been very, powerful for me emotionally. When I first experienced it 2 years ago, it was I was in a Zoom call with Kristin Neff and a bunch of other women physicians, and I didn't know what to expect. This was my first exposure to self-compassion. It was a live call, and she was basically giving us an example of how, or guiding us through it. And it was totally mind-blowing. Basically, she said, well, so think about the situation that you are struggling with. Don't think about the hardest one right now, just maybe 6 to 7 out of 10, not 10 out of 10 difficult. And she said, now, so put all the feelings, all the circumstances, all the words that are in your head about it, put it in your forefront, think about it, feel it. And now imagine your girlfriend, your best friend is telling you about it. It's like, this is the situation she's in. Like, what would you tell her? And all of the women on the call, we were coming up with, ideas what we would tell our friend. And she says, and now turn it and say to yourself. I was completely floored, because when you give, at least from, not you, like from my perspective, I always, to my best friend, I try to be kind, loving, patient, and point out the good things about, and encouraging compassion. But I have never been like that to myself. I have been always very, really harsh to myself. So now when she asked us to do it, to turn it to ourselves and say to ourselves, like, we are our best friend, I was basically crying. And so I have been practicing that since, this is now 2 years ago or just about, and it's been life-changing. So being able to explain it to a patient or client and go through it with them, it almost always ends up in tears. And most of my clients are women. And it just basically, one of the characteristics of women is that we are caring, we are caregivers, we love and give to others before we give to ourselves. And learning how to turn it around is a process.
Yep. And it matters a lot because there is a relation between fibromyalgia and stress. Is that correct?
Yeah. So thank you. So I didn't finish. So the other piece is how to, life changed for me when I basically started learning more about fibromyalgia and what the neuroscience has taught us. I mean, what patients before didn't know when they came to a provider or a physician, they were not told that the pain is real. So the neuroscience of the past 20 years has validated, because I should explain, fibromyalgia means pain all over, different times of the day, on and off, very, very unpredictable, and can be very severe to the point that people cannot do things, but there is no obvious damage or inflammation. There is no bodily harm seen in the areas that are hurting. Basically, that's the disconnect. People have often severe pain, but there is no damage, inflammation, basically no pathology of the tissue that is affected by pain.
It's almost like you got to have faith that the pain is real.
Yes, but it has been there for centuries. And not until the last 20 years when functional brain MRIs came into being. And we don't do them in clinical practice, but they are used in research. And basically the functional MRIs, when you put a person in a functional MRI machine and you scan their brain, you can see, if they have fibromyalgia, you can see the activity, the electromagnetic activity of the different brain regions that are
receiving pain.
Yes.
Yeah.
The brain networking or the brain neuronal networks of somebody with fibromyalgia looks different than without it. So the pain is real. And that discovery, which was over 20 years ago, enabled us to create a separate group of pain just for people who have fibromyalgia and like pains, the neuroplastic. Basically, the pain is real, but it's coming from the brain. And it was huge because for the first time, people were validated. However, the advances from neuroscience are still slow to trickle into healthcare and medical offices. So when I receive patients, so I try to, I still see general rheumatology, but I collect patients with fibromyalgia. When I see them for second or third opinions, they still tell me the first thing they come to, that comes out of your mouth is, I've been to doctors and I know my pain is real, but they tell me it's in my head. I know my pain is real and I just want to feel normal. And I say, yes, your pain is real. We know. Here is the literature. Here are pictures. Like we know. So that's first part of it. And the second part of it is that we don't know exactly, we don't know the exact pathway why the pain happens in every person, but the common denominator does seem to be this regulation of the nervous system based on a perceived threat. The primitive brain, the brainstem and the limbic system above that basically perceives threat either from the environment or that is coming as a result of past experiences, past exposures, or perceptions, and it triggers the stress response. And pain is just one of the symptoms of the stress response. And biologically, we are wired to believe that pain is bad because it leads to avoidance of the behavior and healing, right? When the pain happens as a result of injury, like when I put my hand in a boiling water, it's a reflex. I pull it out to prevent injury. Well, it's a completely different pain in fibromyalgia because it's coming from different networks, from different neuronal networks. And it has been shown that when you're able to change the belief about the significance and origin of pain, you turn down the stress response and you turn down the pain. I mean, it's a fascinating concept. So, it's completely...
Yeah, so into the limbic portion of the brain. Now, this is somewhere where we seek safety, right? Is that what the limbic portion is? I want to be safe.
Exactly, because the primary purpose of our brain is to lead us away from danger towards pleasure, like the danger reward cycle. And so amygdala is one part of the limbic system. Amygdala, we have one small amygdala on each side of our brain. The primary purpose of it is to seek danger. That's the only reason amygdala exists, to seek danger or look for danger. And when it detects it, it connects to other areas of the limbic system, it's biologic, it's fast. It doesn't involve any conscious thought. It's fast. It perceives danger. Boom. Stress response is on. And it was found out that the limbic system is connected to areas of brain that do have to do with thought and past experience and memories and our perception of the world and it's referred to as default mode network, DMN, and it kind of connects multiple centers of the brain. And one piece of it is ventromedial parietal frontal cortex. But really, what is most important is that it's connected to memory, perceptions, and our perception of ourselves being able to function in the world. And very often that is very much that is determined by our upbringing and by, I don't know, like you mentioned Tony Robbins. I'm sure it was in one of his books. He mentions how, do we grow up thinking the world or the universe is friendly, or do we grow up thinking the world and universe is unfriendly? Mm-hmm. And it really changes this default mode network, and what we end up perceiving as a threat and what we end up perceiving as a neutral situation. Mm-hmm. Am I making sense or am I getting
No, you're
Too
making
granular.
no, you're making 100% sense for me. And I am a seeker myself. And I say I'm not a physician, but I absolutely love like seeking and learning and understanding. I'm nowhere close to understanding the depths of this, but what I hear in all of this, it does always come back down to the childhood. And you had a conversation with Kristen Neff. Was that her
Yeah,
name?
it was not just me. It was like we
Right.
were like
So
20 or
Kristen
30
Neff.
women on the call. Yeah.
So I feel like I've heard her name before, and there's a question I like to ask everybody is who is somebody that you know that everybody else should know? And in this conversation, it feels like Kristen Neff is somebody
Yes, yes, for sure, because she's like she has done the most research on self-compassion, and it's when like this was my first exposure to self-compassion was during her workshop, and it was so powerful and it changed my life.
yeah.
But the other person I was gonna say, because that's another person that changed my life in terms of I participated in her course and I was able to heal a lot of my trauma from the past, and her name is Dr. Lissa Rankin. LISSARANKIN, Lissa Rankin. She's board certified OBGYN. She's not practicing gynecology anymore. And basically she's into the whole realm of whole health medicine. She quit traditional medicine before it was popular. And she went on to basically, she decided that people don't need 5 minutes and stress, pills and more pills in the office. She decided people need love and compassion and time and hope and validation.
Yes. So this also links in with the Kristen piece and what we were talking about, the conditioning that we have as children, and what happens to us in the first 7 years of our life and how that affects everything else in our life, coming down to even these neuroassociations, right? These paths, these experiences that we create inside of our mind from our senses, therefore trigger these chemicals in our brain called emotions, and then we lock actions to them.
Yes.
And these paths, these experiences now are what create other things. And as our perspective, these glasses we wear, kind of like push our thoughts on, okay, I'm feeling this. I know this is real inside of me, but my perspective of this, what I'm seeing and hearing and getting from everybody else with fibromyalgia is it's not real. And therefore I'm not a good person, or I can't talk to myself right.
Yes.
So we're coming back down to this point of in life coaching then, and tying all of these pieces together, where that same conversation you had with Christine, and I've had one myself with a friend of mine, and I actually want to bring her on the show. And that epiphany moment, or that moment of realization when she told me is like my success. I'm thinking, I'm a high achiever. Like I want to go out, I want to figure everything out, I want to give everything, I want to help people. But in that drive, when I feel like I'm losing control, when I don't have control, and that's why I seek so much knowledge, I think, because I want to control. When I don't have that, I don't feel like I'm a good person. Right. So all of these things. And then in that conversation leading back to, like my childhood, I'm like saying, well, where did this come from? And analyzing in each one of our lives that we have this opportunity, to figure out where we've gone. And I think it's great that you're bringing that, to your, to the people that you're helping.
Thank you. And I know that you wanted to stay within a certain time frame. What I was going to say, the last thing was, so I talked about how the threat increases the stress response or triggers, how it can produce pain. And the last piece here is that we don't have to go through years of therapy to undo the trauma from the past, because what I say, and there is evidence for it in literature and in other people who do this type of work, is that you can challenge your belief. Well, first you have to discover what are your negative beliefs. For example, mine was that pain relief was available to other people, but not to me. I mean, Interesting, right?
Yeah.
And so you discover the beliefs, you challenge them, you find evidence to support a new thought, new belief. And then you just have to work with that and stay with it every day and practice other things, including self-compassion. And it changes the neurobiology of our brain. I mean, it's fascinating stuff, and it leads to results of pain reduction and just overall other symptoms improve too. Yeah. So that was my last piece.
No, that's beautiful. I love it. Martina, this is, I always talk about books when I talk with people, and this conversation is, it just yields, or it's screaming, read me for the book, Unleash the Giant Within. And that's
I will
that
do it. I will
Anthony
do
Robbins
it.
book. And you're going to love it. It's a big one. Like, it's one of those ones where you're like, okay, I'm a slow reader. When I can find books on Audible, and I love having Audible and the book, because then I can play the Audible at a faster
Yes,
speed.
I
Because
know.
when I'm reading, I wander off, and I'm this. But when it's on Audible, it drives me.
I don't like his voice, so I'm
Well,
just gonna get the Kindle.
this one doesn't even, it has an Audible version, and it's like, it's not even the book. It's the title of the book. It's not even Cliff Notes or anything. I was
Oh, okay.
very
I'll get
disappointed with
it.
the Audible version of this one, but the book itself is wonderful. I think it's like 500 or 600 pages, and it really dives into this. And the thing it made me think of, is just that, like, we can change these processes, right? And
Yes.
it doesn't take forever. It takes, when we called neurosociative highways, I think he calls them, these paths in which our brain fires together. And is it Hebb's law? What fires wires, right? What fires together wires together.
Yeah.
And it gets bigger and bigger, but in an instant it can change. And I forget what was the instant where you can. He had asked a
No
question.
idea.
I wish I was I could pull this out right now. It was asked a very simple question, and it was proof that you could change your mind in an instant in a question. And it was, whether or not you did this. And it was after you saw, or you could see what doing that would do to you, you instantly change. Like, if you see somebody die of this, you instantly, next day, I'm done. I'm never going to do that. So there's these things that we can do that makes it possible to change our way of life instantly. And there are processes that make that easier. It's a challenge, right? There's hard work in it.
No, because it starts with an idea and you want to change, but then the hard work, like the daily grind, when things get tough and you have to go back to why you're doing it. Yeah, I get that. And I'm going to read the book for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for the recommendation. I appreciate that.
It's a great book. I always love asking too. And all of this mends so perfectly for what I do professionally. And I do professionally as investing in real estate and helping others invest in real estate. In your journey here, what has been your mindset for passive income, or setting up something, a path for, not trading time for money? Has that been a thought at all for you?
I am not, my beliefs about that are not very high. So
okay,
I have
tell me more. What's that mean?
No, well, I have I started a fund for my son, right, when he was born. Like, I put away a couple of $100s, or I had a financial advisor help me set it up. And then, and he said by the time he's 18, it will accumulate like passive, interest or whatever.
Uh-huh. Yep. Compounding interest, probably.
Yes. And I was very hopeful. And then the pandemic came, and it basically, I don't even know how much, but it wiped like 40% of the, so I felt defeated. Yeah. And, so I have my retirement account, and I have somebody, the financial advisor, look over that, and we meet, but I don't have a lot of knowledge. I feel when I'm talking to you, I feel very inadequate.
Martina, do you think that, anybody else in medicine has the same, has that same feeling that you have?
I'm surrounded by people. So I'm in a couple of different Facebook groups, and they're all very savvy. And there is a course for physicians, like a real estate investor, I think it's called, or something like that. And the thing is that whenever I hear the words real investor or real estate, I just have like a visceral reaction. Like, I don't want to deal with real estate, like because to me it means extra work.
Yeah.
So I'm probably telling you all horrible things, like you're probably like shaking
No,
your
no,
head.
no. What you're telling me is exactly what we've been talking about this whole time. There's these paths, these
Yes.
experiences that have triggered and conditioned you for the way that you're feeling now. And by sharing this is exactly why I love doing the show, because you are not alone. There are so many other professionals out there that are in the same. You are passionate about what you do, and it is not being a landlord. It is not investing in syndication funds. It's not
Yes.
looking at portfolios, right? So there's nothing wrong with it. So that same compassion that you have, you need to have that in this
For
instance.
myself, right? Like, yeah. So
100%. Nobody expects you to be perfect or engaged, I would suggest that you just keep open and be interested in what your money's doing. And I always caution everybody too, just because somebody's in a financial advisor, there are great financial advisors out there, but just because they have that particular certification doesn't mean that they're going to do what's best for Martina.
And how do you know? And I'm sorry, this doesn't belong here to the show, but how do you know? How do I know that what my money is doing is good?
Right. It's a great. I don't know. I mean, that's why we talk.
Right.
I don't know. And what happened during the pandemic, I mean, when we're setting in on these types of investments, it is volatile. It's risk. There's risk for the return. I was in the same way too. When I started my first, I was an independent contractor. If everybody can't hear me, put my fingers up in the air here. Independent contractor. And I got my license as a general contractor, and I put my first $200 or $300 in my Roth, or in my, it was a Roth through Edward Jones. And, that was I gave it there, and it was a set it and forget it. And then so many of us have these 401ks, these Roths, 403bs, all of these different letters and numbers that, to be honest with you, we don't really care about, right? The ultimate is, what's the outcome, right?
Yeah.
Is it going up or is it going down? The bad part about that is we leave something up. We leave our lives up to somebody else in that regard. And in what instance do we take the time to learn who that person is? What's their results? What's their strategies, right? Instead, it's just here. Oh, you're with Oppenheimer. Okay, great. You'll be good. That'll work. Right. So it's just one of those things where I want you to care about whether it is, and it doesn't have to be real estate. My particular profession is real estate because that's where my knowledge is, just like you in rheumatology and in fibromyalgia is that, right? If you wanted to go see somebody, you want to see somebody with passion in that, right? So each person has their particular set of experiences and knowledge. In that same way, I want you to have that same draw or passion on not only the investment itself, but you and your life and your child, right? Because that matters a lot. And don't ever shy away from it, right? I think it's a great point to start. I really appreciate you telling me about that and being kind of put off by it, because you should, right? You should be, right? It's like somebody take your money from you.
Sounds like I'm going to be scheduling an appointment with my financial advisor soon.
Yeah. So listen to me. This guy, Brett, he told me you are horrible. Yeah. No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Don't worry.
No, it's just being interested, I think, is the biggest part, because it was and there's so many things for me with that. It was so easy because I was so focused on other things. When I was with a design build firm myself, I was being taken care of. I was getting paid very well. I didn't have time to do any of that. Oh, you do a 401k match? Okay, great. I'll do that. And then you go ahead, put it wherever you put it, and hopefully it'll do okay. The difference for me, Martina, in real estate is I control in an asset that's not volatile. It doesn't depend on the market. And I have systems set up to where I am I have a set of standards for the condition of the property. I am bringing good homes to good people, right? That's my value in that investment. And the markets that I'm in, they don't go up and down. They're stable. And if anything, we're watching appreciation. We're making long-term relationships with long-term solutions. So there's paths out there, No,
and the way you're explaining that, I really like. And, right now the drawback is you need a lot of funds to invest. So, yeah. But one day I'll get there.
Yeah, yeah. Funds and
And I
time.
can make a decision then whether I'm
Yeah.
going to invest in syndications or something like that.
Yeah. And even in those situations too, just the whole idea that we had on the neural associations and conditioning and getting to that point, don't have an answer to a question before Martina researches it, right? Because you have a
Right.
great mind, you make up your mind on that. And I always warn everybody too when we're like in market analysis or something, it was like, be a caution because you will find what you're looking for. If you have this set in your mind before you start researching, and you have a tendency to look for things and you'll find them because it's a subjective approach, as opposed to this is science, this is math,
Research.
yes, this is objective, black or white, yes or no, right? Well, I could just talk for hours. My wife tells me I have the gift of gab. So hopefully the listeners found some enjoyment in our conversation here. I've enjoyed speaking with you for this time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Same here.
Meeting you as well. And is there anything, I know we've got the website here, and with your passion with fibromyalgia and life coaching, is there anything else that you like to tell the listeners out there and maybe give them some resources?
Well, I'm starting my new private practice, and the website is not up, but the name is Whole Health Rheumatology of Cape Cod, and it will be up in a couple of weeks. So if they are in Massachusetts and want to come and see me, I would appreciate.
Awesome.
Whole Health Rheumatology of Cape Cod, and otherwise I'm on winning@fibromyalgia.com website. They can find me. They can connect with me. winning@fibromyalgia.com.
That's wonderful. And I've got that at winning at fibromyalgia.com. And I looked at that site. Very cool. Thanks again. One last question. What would you tell your 30-year-old self? If you could go back in time and say, Martina, listen to me, what would you say?
Yeah, you make me, this is like the third crime, you're making me cry. But basically, I would tell myself that trust yourself, that you can figure out what is best next step for you, because I always have, but I didn't always trust myself. And having that knowledge that I can figure out what is the best next step for me in any situation, is like a lifesaver. Like I don't have to know the whole solution, just what is my next best step in this situation, and then what is my next best step next. Like it's been life-changing for me to be able to trust myself. And I haven't always done that. And when my patients, when they start trusting themselves, it changes their lives. So,
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Brad. It's been a pleasure.
So much
Complete pleasure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And thank you everybody out there for listening. Thank you for downloading consistently, checking us out. And it's just absolutely blast meeting with you every single week. I want to hear more from you. We have the email address info@physicianwealthsystems.com. It's all spelled out. And wherever you go to download the podcast, you can see that email as well too. Any questions that you may have, anything that you want us to talk about, anybody you think should be on the show. If you want to be on the show, send us an email. We always love chatting, and it's just such a pleasure to share our journeys together. Dr. Martina's Ziegenbein, I absolutely loved our conversation today. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you for everybody out there for listening to us. And we'll see you next time. Everybody have a great day.